The letter from town. Some stories begin with thunder and lightning, but mine started with the scratch of a pen on paper and the smell of burnt coffee on a September morning. I was 46 then, living alone on 40 acres of Arizona scrubland, trying to forget a war that wouldn't forget me. That was 1882, when a man could disappear into the desert, and folks would leave him be. The letter that changed everything came with old Samuel, who'd been driving the supply wagon since before the war. He set it on my fence post like it might bite him, then backed away. Looking back now, after all these years, I reckon he knew trouble when he saw it. Some letters carry hope, some carry grief. This one carried both, wrapped in a woman's careful handwriting and sealed with promise I wasn't sure I could keep. The coffee had boiled over again. Third time this week. The smell of it burning on the stovetop filled the cabin, bitter and sharp, like everything else in my life those days. I grabbed the pot handle with my shirt sleeve, set it outside to cool. The September air already had that bite to it, warning that winter would come early to the high desert. Samuel's wagon was rolling away, dust rising slow in the morning light. He hadn't waited for coffee like usual, hadn't asked after my health or commented on the weather, just left that envelope and hurried off like he had somewhere important to be. The letter felt thin between my fingers, but heavy somehow. Mrs. Adelaide Chambers. The return address said, Fort Worth, Texas. I didn't know any Mrs. Chambers, didn't know anybody in Fort Worth, hadn't gotten a letter in 2 years, not since my mother passed. I sat on the porch step, the one that creaked no matter how many times I fixed it, and opened the envelope careful-like. Inside was 2 pages of neat writing and a small photograph. Mr. Thornfield, I hope this letter finds you in good health and spirits. I am writing on behalf of a widow lady of good character who finds herself in need of a husband's protection. She is of the Apache Nation, educated by the Mission Sisters, skilled in keeping house, and of quiet disposition. The words swam a little. I had to rub my eyes. Start again. An Apache woman, wanting to marry a white man she'd never met. The Mission Sisters vouched for her character. A modest dowry would accompany her. I looked at the photograph. Size of my thumb. Edges worn like it had been handled plenty. A woman in a dark dress. Face turned so you could only see the line of her jaw and black hair pulled back severe. On the back, written in pencil, Maria Crow Feather, age 28 years. The coffee smell drifted back through the door, mixing with the sage on the wind. I sat there a good long while, reading that letter 3 times through. Mrs. Chambers wrote like she was dancing around something, using fancy words where plain ones would do, but underneath all the decoration, the message was simple. Here was a woman needed hiding, and I had a place to hide. The photograph started to blur. My hands were shaking. Just a little. Not from fear. I'd used most of that up at Skeleton Canyon 12 years back. This was something else. Maybe hope. Maybe just the shock of realizing how lonely I'd been. Talking to nobody but my horse for months at a time. I stood up, bones creaking like that porch step. Walked inside to the mess I called home. Dirty dishes from 3 days back. Bedroll kicked in the corner, still damp with night sweats. Mouse droppings by the stove. When had I stopped noticing? When had living like this become normal? The trunk in the corner hadn't been opened in 3 years. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was my mother's Bible and my discharge papers. Under those, my dress uniform. The brass buttons had gone green, and there was a stain on the sleeve I didn't remember. I held it up to the window light, lieutenant's insignia still there, tarnished but readable. "Lord help me," I said to the empty room, first words I'd spoken aloud in a week. Am I really thinking of doing this? But I already knew the answer, had known it from the moment I saw that woman's photograph. We were both running from something. Maybe, together, we could run toward something instead. I found paper and pen, wrote my answer short and plain, "Mrs. Chambers, I accept. The lady may come at her convenience. I will meet the stage and provide safe escort. Enclosed is money for passage. J. Thornfield." I didn't mention the leaking roof or the 8 miles to the nearest neighbor. Didn't mention the nightmares or the laudanum I kept for the worst nights. She had her secrets. I had mine. Maybe that would be enough foundation for a marriage. Stranger things had worked. That night I lit the lamp and tried to imagine another person in this cabin. Someone to share the morning coffee with. Even if we didn't share words. Someone whose breathing would fill the silence that pressed down like a weight most nights. The coyotes started their singing outside, and for once it didn't sound so lonesome. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The lye soap ate through the skin on my knuckles first. Pink water in the bucket, then red. I kept scrubbing. The floorboards had turned the color of old tobacco juice. When had that happened? 2 years back. 3. My mother's voice came uninvited. "Cleanliness is next to godliness. Jacob?" Well, I'd been living far from both. The brush hit something soft behind the stove. Mouse nest. Built from newspaper shreds and what looked like hair from my own comb. The date on one piece was still readable, October 1879. 3 years the mice had been housekeeping better than me. I swept it all into the fire. The flames turned blue for a moment from the mouse droppings, then settled back to orange. My back screamed when I straightened up. The wash water needed changing again, 4th time since dawn. Gray-brown soup with bits of things I didn't want to identify floating in it. The general store in Millerton would close at 4. I'd need fabric, soap, things a woman might need. The thought of asking Hutchins what those things might be made my stomach knot up. I dumped the water outside, watched it sink into dirt baked hard as brick. The sun was already past noon high. If I left now, I'd make town with an hour to spare. The ride to Millerton took me past the old Jameson place, burned out 5 years back. Apache trouble, they said, though I had my doubts. The charred beams still stood like black bones against the sky. I urged my horse faster. Hutchins was waiting on his store porch, already grinning. "Jacob Thornfield, twice in 1 month. World must be ending." I tied my horse, climbed the steps. "Need supplies?" "Sure you do." He followed me inside. Tobacco juice staining his beard. "Heard you're taking a wife. That Apache woman from Fort Sill." My hand paused on a bolt of blue calico. Word traveled fast in the territory. Too fast. 6 yards, I said. 6 yards of fabric. Yes, sir. He pulled it down, measuring with practiced hands. What else for your bride hair pins, face powder, pretty ribbons? I picked up white soap wrapped in paper. Castle, no. Castile, the label read. Smelled like olive oil instead of lye. Added a hand mirror with a silver back. A tortoiseshell comb. "She arriving on Tuesday's stage?" Hutchins asked, wrapping everything in brown paper. "Thursday. Thursday." He pulled the twine tight. Interesting. Same day those Pinkerton men said they'd be passing through, looking for someone. Apache woman. They said. The mirror slipped from my hand. The mirror hit the floor. Glass cracked straight across, splitting my reflection in two. 7 years bad luck, my mother would have said. Hutchins kept talking while I knelt to pick up the pieces. Pinkerton men don't come cheap. Someone with money wants this woman found. He leaned on his counter, enjoying himself. Course, could be a different Apache woman entirely. Lord knows there's plenty of them since the reservation troubles. My thumb found the crack in the glass. A thin line of blood welled up. I wrapped the mirror in my handkerchief, set it on the counter with the other goods. That'll be $4.30. I counted out the money, coins worn smooth from 1,000 hands. Hutchins wrapped the broken mirror with everything else, tied the bundle with twine pulled too tight. Thursday, then, he said. Should be interesting. The ride home took longer. The package bounced against my saddle, and I kept thinking about those Pinkerton men. Private detectives didn't work the territory unless the pay was substantial, unless someone powerful wanted someone found. Back at the cabin, I strung rope across the main room. The army blanket I hung from it sagged in the middle, pulled it tighter. The rope creaked against the beam, but held. Her side. My side. 10 feet of respectability between them. Thursday came with clouds building in the west. Not rain clouds, those had a different look. These were dust clouds, the kind that turned the air yellow and got in your teeth. I'd made stew the night before. Beans and salt pork and wild onions I'd found by the creek. It sat on the cold stove now, waiting to be warmed. 3 o'clock. The stage would arrive at 4 if it wasn't running late. It was always running late. I checked my appearance in the water bucket. Hollow cheeks, eyes sunk back in my skull like they were hiding from something. My razor had scraped away the beard but left the years. When had 34 started looking like 5330? I walked to the porch, studied the road. Nothing. Back inside to check the stew. Added salt. Tasted it. Added pepper. Stirred it with the same spoon. Set it back on the cold stove. 3:40. A jackrabbit spooked from the brush. My hand went to the Winchester over the door before I caught myself. Just a rabbit. I walked the room, testing floorboards. The third one from the stove creaked. Always had. Should have fixed it years ago. But now it seemed important she know about it. That creak might matter in the dark. 3:50. Dust on the horizon. But wrong direction coming from the north road. Not the stage route. I stepped onto the porch, hand resting on the doorframe where I could reach the rifle quick if needed. The wagon rolled closer. Military surplus. By the look of those iron-reinforced wheels, the kind that could take rough treatment and keep rolling. The driver wore a cavalry hat. Union blue faded to gray. Colored man, from what I could see. Woman beside him. Face hidden under a black poke bonnet. They stopped 20 yards out. Close enough to talk. Far enough to run. The driver's hands stayed visible on the reins. Man knew how to approach a stranger's property without getting shot. Mr. Thornfield, that's me. Got your delivery from Fort Sill. His voice carried Alabama in it. Or maybe Mississippi. Name's Ezekiel. Served with the 10th before this leg went bad. He climbed down careful, favoring his left side. Moved around to help the woman. But she was already stepping down on her own. The traveling dress hung loose on her frame, blue wool gone shiny at the elbows. hem frayed where it had dragged in the dirt. When she turned toward the cabin, the bonnet's shadow still hid most of her face. "This is Mrs. Crow Feather," Ezekiel said. She pulled off the bonnet. The photograph hadn't lied. But it hadn't told the truth either. Stronger jaw. Yes, cheekbones that threw shadows even in the flat afternoon light. But it was the eyes that stopped me black as wet stone, taking in everything and giving back nothing. She looked at the cabin, the ridge behind it, the road in both directions, memorizing exits. "Maria," her voice came out low, careful, like she was rationing words. "I cook, I keep house, I don't talk much. That's fine." We stood there, 15 feet of dirt between us. The wind picked up, pushing dust around our feet. Ezekiel shifted his weight. Waiting. "Got her trunk," he finally said. "I'll get it. I carry my own things." She was already at the wagon's back, hands on the leather handles of a small Saratoga trunk. The latch had been replaced with rope, tied in a knot I didn't recognize. She lifted it too easy, like it was mostly empty, and walked past me toward the cabin. The hem of her dress stirred up little clouds of dust with each step. Ezekiel climbed back onto the wagon seat, gathered the reins. "You're not staying?" I asked. "Coffee's made, or water for the horses?" "No, sir." He backed the team, turning them. "Apache territory makes folks nervous, even when it ain't Apache territory no more. She's alone here. She's alone everywhere." He touched his hat brim. "You seem like a decent sort, Mr. Thornfield. Hope that's true." And the wagon rolled away. I watched until the dust swallowed it, then went inside. Maria had set her trunk by the blanket divide, clearly marking her territory. She stood at the window, 2 fingers touching the sill, testing how it opened, whether the wood would hold, whether the latch would stick if she needed to get out fast. "Stew's ready," I said. "If you're hungry." She turned, studied me the way you'd study a dog you weren't sure about, friendly or dangerous, safe to turn your back on or not. "You eat first." "What? You eat? Then I know it's safe." I ladled stew into a tin bowl, took 3 spoonfuls while she watched. The beans were soft, the pork salty, the onions barely cooked through. She waited another moment, then served herself. We sat at opposite ends of the table. She ate steady, methodical, spoon to mouth, eyes on the door, every third bite. She'd glance at the window. The spoon scraped against tin in a rhythm that seemed deliberate. When she shifted, her chair creaked. She froze for a heartbeat, memorizing the sound, then continued eating. "The floorboard by the stove," I said. "3rd one from the wall." "It creaks." She stood, walked to it, pressed down with her boot. The board groaned like it was in pain. She nodded, sat back down. "You were Army," she said. Not a question. How long since? 12 years. Her eyes went to my hands, the scars across the knuckles from a horse bite, the way my right thumb wouldn't straighten all the way. Skeleton Canyon. The spoon slipped from my fingers, hit the bowl hard enough to splash broth on the table. "How did you, the way you stand, like you're waiting for something to come from the south?" She took another bite. "My father was interpreter for the Army. I learned to read soldiers." "Your father's dead." The broker's letter said, "Everyone's dead." She pushed her bowl away, still half full, stood and walked to her trunk, knelt beside it. A key hung on a leather cord around her neck. She unlocked the trunk, lifted the lid just enough to reach inside. Something wrapped in oilcloth came out. Then the lid snapped shut. She tucked the bundle under the thin mattress on her side of the blanket divide. "The lamp," she said. "Does it burn all night?" "If you want. I want darkness." "All right." She walked to the door, checked the latch, then the window again. Her fingers found every gap in the chinking between the logs, every place where light might get in, or where someone might look through. "Nobody comes here," I said. "Someone always comes." She faced me, and for the first time I saw how young she really was, maybe 25, maybe younger. Hard living made it difficult to tell. "That's why we hide. But someone always comes." She moved to her side of the blanket. I heard her boots hit the floor, one, then the other. The rope bed creaked as she lay down. I stayed at the table, listening to her breathing, not sleeping, just breathing, waiting, counting. The sun dropped behind the western ridge. Shadows stretched across the floor like long fingers reaching for something. I trimmed the lamp wick, set it on the table between our spaces. The flame danced, making her shadow move on the wall even though she was lying still. "Mr. Thornfield?" "Yeah." "The wedding? When?" "We could go to town tomorrow. Justice of the peace." "No." Her voice came firm from behind the blanket. "Not yet." The broker says many things. First, we see if we can share space without killing each other. I almost laughed. Would have, if her tone hadn't been dead serious. "How long before you'll know?" Silence. Then, "I'll know by morning." Something in the way she said it made the hair on my neck stand up. Like morning was a test we might not pass. I walked to my bed, sat on the edge, started pulling off my boots, working the leather loose from my feet. Metal clicked soft behind the blanket divide. The sound a hammer makes when you pull it back slow, trying not to let anyone hear. My boot stayed half off, leather pressing against my ankle where I'd stopped pulling. That metallic click hung in the air between us like smoke from a gun that hadn't fired yet. I kept my breathing steady. In through the nose, out through the mouth. The way I'd learned when Apache scouts might be listening in the dark. My hands stayed visible on my knees. "I keep a Colt .45 under my pillow, too," I said to the blanket divide. "Had it since Laredo. Never needed it here." Fabric rustled. The click didn't repeat, but I heard her shift. The rope bed creaking under redistributed weight. "Good to know," she said. I finished pulling off the boot, set it beside its partner. The floorboard under my feet had a nail head that stuck up. Been meaning to hammer it down for 2 years. Now it gave me something to focus on besides the woman 10 feet away who might shoot me before dawn. We moved through the evening like dancers who couldn't hear the same music. She stood first, walked to the table. I stayed on my bed until she'd poured water from the pitcher. Then I rose, went to the stove, added a piece of oak to the firebox. She returned to her space. I moved to the table. The dishes from supper sat in the wash basin. I poured hot water from the kettle, watched it turn gray from the food residue. The soap had gone soft in the water, slippery between my fingers, behind the blanket. Her trunk opened. The leather hinges creaked. Something soft hit the floor fabric, maybe. Then paper rustling. I scraped at dried stew with my thumbnail, set the clean bowl on the shelf, She cleared her throat. I picked up another bowl, started scrubbing. The lye soap was eating at the cuts on my knuckles from this morning's cleaning. Pink water in the basin now. Her trunk closed. Footsteps to the window. I dried the bowl with a flour sack towel that needed washing itself. Through the gap where the blanket didn't quite meet the wall, I caught a glimpse of her. Quick hands unwrapping something. Oilcloth crackling. Then brown paper inside that. A flash of brass buttons, military brass. The kind they put on dress uniforms before she tucked it under her bedroll. I turned back to the dishes. Washed the spoons one at a time. The tin pot took longer. Scrubbing at the bottom where beans had stuck. Behind me. She moved again. Back to the trunk. The lock clicked open. Clicked shut. By the time I turned around, she was standing by the table with her cup. She rinsed it in the basin, careful not to let our hands touch. The sleeve of her dress pulled back as she reached for the towel. A scar ran from her wrist up into the fabric. Straight, deliberate. The kind someone gives themselves when the pain inside needs to come out. She saw me notice. Pulled the sleeve down, quick. "The blanket," I said. "The thick one, army wool. It gets cold here at night. I have what I need. Temperature drops quick in October. I said I have what I need." She walked back to her side. The trunk opened again, briefly. This time she pulled out a book. Small, bound in dark leather. The pages were worn soft at the edges from handling. She held it against her chest like armor. I moved to the lamp. The wick needed trimming. I'd set it too high earlier, and now black smoke was curling up, staining the glass chimney. The scissors were in the drawer, but when I cut the wick, I cut too much. The flame sputtered, threw wild shadows on the walls. "Leave it," she said. "I like it darker." The smoke made my eyes water. I adjusted the wick just enough to stop the worst of it, then sat on my bed. The springs creaked. Hers creaked in response as she lay down. We pretended at sleep. Her breathing went steady. Too steady. The rhythm was forced, deliberate, like someone counting each breath. Mine probably sounded the same. The cabin filled with our careful breathing and the pop of oak burning down in the stove. Outside. A coyote called from the ridge. Then another, closer, a whole pack from the sound. They were working their way down toward the creek, probably after the mule deer that watered there at night. Maria's breathing hitched, then started again faster. "They won't come near the cabin," I said. "I know. The way sound carries in these canyons. They seem closer, I know." But her breathing stayed quick. I counted. 23 breaths to my 10. Then she forced it slower. 18. 15. Trying to match mine. The lamp flame died down to blue at the wick's edge. Should add oil. Should get up and fix it. Neither of us moved. My eyes adjusted to the dimness. Through the blanket. I could make out her shape, a dark mass on the bed. Curled on her side facing the door. One arm under the pillow where she'd tucked whatever made that clicking sound earlier. The stove popped. A log shifting as it burned through. She sat up fast at the sound. Then lay back down when nothing followed. Her breathing had gone ragged again. "You're not sleeping," I said. "Neither are you." "Hard to sleep with a stranger in the house." "Yes." We lay there in the almost dark, listening to each other not sleep. The moon wasn't up yet, so the only light came from that dying lamp flame and the faint glow through the stove grate. Your father, I said. You said he was an interpreter. Yes. Which unit? Several, 7th Cavalry 1st, then transferred around. Her voice sounded different in the dark. Younger. The careful mission school English more pronounced. He was good with languages, Apache, Spanish, English, some French from the trappers. Smart man, dead man. The way she said it didn't invite more questions. But in the dark, questions seemed easier somehow. How? Silence, then shot. 3 times. Running away. They said, from what? From soldiers, from orders, from watching his people die. My throat went tight. I swallowed, tasted copper. When, 12 years ago, September 15th, Skeleton Canyon, the bed springs screamed as I sat up. My feet hit the floor hard enough to shake the lamp on the table. The dying flame flickered. Almost went out. Your father was Thomas Dancing Crow. You knew him. Her voice had gone sharp. The word stuck. I coughed. Tried again. I was there. 3rd Squadron, Lieutenant under Morrison. Fabric rustled. She was sitting up now, too. I could see her silhouette against the window. You were at Skeleton Canyon? Yes. The morning they killed the families coming in to surrender? Yes. The morning my father was shot in the back for trying to protect them? Yes. The lamp flame died completely. Darkness rushed in like water through a broken dam. In that darkness, I heard her stand, heard her feet on the floor. The metallic click again, louder this time. Then you know why I'm really here, she said. Outside. Something scratched at the door, light, deliberate, not wind, not an animal's random pawing. The kind of scratch someone makes when they want you to know they're there. The scratching came again. Lower this time. I stood slow, sock feet silent on the boards. Maria's shape moved toward the door, something dark and heavy in her hand. Don't, she whispered. Might be a dog. Strays come through sometimes. No dogs out here. The scratching turned frantic. Then a sound that made my stomach clench, a wet cough. The kind that comes with blood. I reached for the door latch. Maria's hand caught my wrist, fingers ice cold. Could be bait. Make you open the door. Nobody knows you're here. Someone always knows. The scratching stopped. Then a thump against the door. Something sliding down the wood. I felt it hit the porch boards through my feet. It's hurt, I said. Everything's hurt. But she let go of my wrist. I lifted the latch. Opened the door a crack. The lamp had died, but starlight leaked in, showing brown fur, a dark stain spreading on the porch boards. A dog. Sure enough. Shepherd mix from the look. Its side had been opened up. 3 long cuts, too straight to be from fighting. Knife wounds, Maria said. She'd moved beside me, looking down at the animal. Someone cut it and let it run. Wanted to see where it would go. The dog's eyes had gone glassy. Blood pooled thick on the boards. Black in the starlight. They're not out there now, Maria said. But they were, maybe 2 hours ago, from how much it bled before getting here. You can't know that. She stepped over the carcass. Walked to the porch rail. Stood listening to the night. I know what I know. I grabbed a feed sack from inside. Covered the dog. The blood had already soaked into the boards. It would stain. Another mark this place would carry. Back inside, Maria struck a match. The sulfur flare hurt my eyes. She touched it to what was left of the lamp wick. The flame caught weak, drowning in its own oil. "We need to leave," she said. "It's just a dead dog." "It's a message." She sat at the table, hands flat on the wood. "They found me. Who's they?" She looked at me steady. The lamp flame made her eyes look black as the blood outside. "First, I need to tell you something. About who I really am." I sat across from her. The table felt solid between us. Something real to hold on to. "Your name's not Maria Crowfeather." "No." She pulled out the papers from earlier, the ones from the broker. "Maria died 8 days ago at Fort Sill, lung fever. I was tending her in the infirmary." "And you took her name?" "She was dying. Talking about this arrangement, this white man who'd marry her sight unseen." Maria, or whoever she was, unfolded the papers. A way out. Away from the reservation. From the army. From all of it. "So you became her. Wasn't hard. Apache woman, mid-20s, black hair. We all look the same to white people." "What's your real name?" She studied me. The lamp gurgled, oil flooding the wick. We both watched it struggle. "Sarah," she said finally. "Sarah Dancing Crow. Thomas Dancing Crow's daughter. His only living child." Her fingers traced the wood grain in the table. "The others died at Sand Creek when I was 4. I barely remember them. Your father was a good man working for bad men." She stood, walked to her trunk, knelt beside it. "He taught me to read and write, 4 languages, said education was the only weapon they couldn't take away." She pulled out a book, McGuffey's Reader, worn soft from use, set it on the table between us. This was his. He was teaching himself better English from it. Wanted to speak proper, like the officers. She opened it. Her father's writing filled the margins. Apache words next to English ones. He wrote down everything. Said someone should remember. Remember what really happened, not what the reports said. The lamp flame shrank to a blue line. I reached for the oil can. Added more. Too much. The wick started drowning again. Black smoke curling up. "Maria Sarah, whoever you are, I'm nobody now. That's the point." She closed the reader, held it against her chest. "Maria's dead. Sarah Dancing Crow officially died at Sand Creek when she was 4. The girl who survived, who went to the mission school, who worked at Fort Sill, she doesn't exist on any government paper. But you're here. A ghost is here, wearing a dead woman's name." I thought about that. About what it meant to stop existing. I'd tried it myself, hiding out here for 12 years, but I still had my name, my discharge papers, my official existence. Why tell me? Because you were there, that morning. She leaned forward. The lamplight caught the planes of her face, sharp as broken glass. "I remember you." "That's not possible. You were 4. I was 10. My mouth went dry. The record said, the records lied about ages, numbers, everything. She pulled out another paper. "This is my baptism certificate from the mission school, 1872. Says I was 8 years old. Count back I was born in 1864, which made me 10 at Skeleton Canyon." The math sat there between us like a loaded gun. "I hid in the supply wagon," she continued. "When the shooting started, saw everything through a gap in the canvas. Christ. Saw my father trying to translate. Morrison holding a gun to his head, forcing him to tell the families they were safe. Her voice stayed flat. Empty. Saw him run toward them when he realized what was happening. Saw Morrison shoot him. 3 times in the back. My hands started shaking. I pressed them flat on the table. The wood felt rough. Real, not like memory, which came smooth and terrible. "I saw you too," she said. "Young lieutenant. You tried to stop it. Too late. You grabbed Morrison's arm. He broke your thumb for it." I looked at my right hand, the thumb that wouldn't straighten. "Part of why. Then he kicked you down. By the time you got up, it was almost over. 63 dead. 73. She pulled out another paper. I counted, wrote down names later, when I learned to write better. The lamp sputtered. We sat in the dying light. 2 people on opposite sides of the same nightmare. "Why come here?" I asked. "Why marry me? Not marry you. Hide behind you." She gathered the papers, stacked them neat. "Become Mrs. Thornfield. Invisible. Safe." From who? Morrison. The name hit my chest like a fist. Morrison's a senator now. "Yes. Running for president, maybe?" She smiled. No warmth in it. "Can't have witnesses to old massacres coming forward. You're not a witness. You were a child. I have documents, my father's journals, his translations of Morrison's real orders." She walked to her trunk, pulled out an oilcloth bundle. "Field reports that contradict the official story. Letters from survivors. Enough to end him. Or get you killed. Yes." Outside, wind picked up. The tin roof clicked and settled. Sounded like footsteps if you were listening for footsteps. We both turned toward the sound, then back to each other. "The Pinkerton men," I said. "Hutchins mentioned them. They've been 3 days behind me since Fort Worth." She rewrapped the documents. "I thought I'd lost them. But the dog says they found me, or someone did." She stood, walked to the window. "They'll come at first light, probably. Want to see what they're dealing with. We could leave now." "Where would we go?" "Your nearest neighbor is 8 miles. Town's 15. They'd catch us on the road." She was right. I knew these roads. Knew how exposed they were. No cover except sagebrush and rocks. A mounted man could see for miles. So we wait. We wait. She checked the loads in her Navy Colt. An old gun, but well-maintained. "Unless you want to give me up, tell them I forced you. You didn't know anything." "They wouldn't believe it." "No, but you could try." The lamp flame died completely. Darkness filled the cabin like water. I heard her move back to her side of the blanket. The rope bed creaked. Then silence, except for wind and the settling fire in the stove. "Mr. Thornfield?" "Yeah." "That morning. At Skeleton Canyon. Did you know what was going to happen?" The question sat in the darkness between us. I wanted to lie. Would have been easier, but she'd told me her truth. I knew something was wrong. The way Morrison was acting. The orders that didn't make sense. I swallowed. Tasted bile. But I followed them anyway. Until the shooting started. Yes, then it was too late. "It's never too late," she said. "That's what my father wrote in his journal the night before. It's never too late to choose right over rank. He was a better man than me. He was a dead man. You're still breathing." Something in her voice made me ask, what really happened to Maria? The real Maria. Silence. Long enough I thought she wouldn't answer. She asked me to help her die. The fever was drowning her in her own lungs. She was suffering. Sarah's voice came soft. I held the pillow over her face, gentle. She didn't fight. Jesus. Then I signed the death certificate, took her papers, became her. A pause. So now you know. I'm a murderer too. The wind picked up harder. Something banged against the side of the cabin. Loose board. Maybe, or maybe not. They're out there, Sarah said. Waiting. How many? 3, maybe 4. Morrison doesn't send less than that. I reached under my pillow, found the Colt, checked the loads by feel. 6 shots. Sarah had 6 too. 12 bullets against 3 or 4 men. Sarah, yes, your father, before he died. Did he say anything? She was quiet so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, he said, protect her. Looking right at Morrison. His last words were to the man who'd just shot him. Her voice caught. Morrison laughed. The darkness pressed against us like a living thing. I heard Sarah shift on her bed. The rope springs groaning under her weight. My own breathing sounded too loud in my ears. I need to show you something, she said. A match struck. The sulfur sting filled my nose. She touched it to a candle I hadn't seen her get. The small flame threw her shadow huge on the wall behind her. She knelt by her trunk, worked the lock. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a leather portfolio. Brown, worn at the edges. She brought it to the table, set it down careful like it might break. My father wrote everything down, she said. In Apache first, then Spanish, then English. He said someone should know what really happened. She opened the portfolio. Pages covered in neat writing. Small, precise letters. The kind a man makes when paper is precious, and truth more so. September 14th. The night before, her finger traced the words. Morrison came to my father's tent, told him the plan had changed. The surrender was off. That's not what we were told. No. She turned the page. Here, Morrison's actual words, translated. Tell them to come to the South Canyon. Tell them they'll be safe. Tell them the soldiers will protect them. My throat closed up. I remembered that morning. The families walking in. Old men, women, children, maybe 20 warriors. Most of them boys not old enough to shave. They'd left their weapons at the canyon mouth as agreed. Came in singing. Some of the children were laughing. My father knew, Sarah continued, but Morrison had me. Said he'd kill me first if my father warned them. She turned another page. A list of names, Apache names I couldn't pronounce, ages beside them. So many under 10 years old. 73 people, she said. My father counted them the night before, like he knew he'd need a record. We were told they were hostiles, that they'd been raiding. Look. She pulled out another paper. Telegraph from General Crook, September 12th, orders to escort surrendering Apache families to Fort Sill, peaceful transfer, no engagement unless fired upon. My hands started trembling. I pressed them flat on the table, but they kept shaking. Sweat ran down my back despite the cold night air. Morrison ignored it. Morrison buried it. Told my father to mistranslate, to tell the families they were going to water and rest, that the soldiers were there to help. She pulled out another document. Military letterhead. Morrison's signature at the bottom. Orders to the squadron, she said. Eliminate all hostiles, no prisoners, no witnesses. I never saw those orders. Only the sergeants did. You lieutenants were told different. That's in here too. She found another page. Morrison's briefing notes. Tell the young officers we're escorting surrendering Apache. Keep them calm until the action starts. They'll follow once the shooting begins. My stomach twisted. Bile rose in my throat. I swallowed it down. Tasted copper and acid. He planned it. Every detail. Sarah's voice stayed flat, emotionless. Like she'd told this story so many times in her head, it had worn smooth. Even planned witnesses. A few officers who'd report what he wanted reported. But not me. No, you were... She found another page. Here, Morrison's assessment of officers. Thornfield, too soft. Religious mother, hesitates. Use but don't trust. The words hit like fists. I remembered Morrison's face that morning. The way he'd smiled when he gave the order. The way he'd looked at me when I'd grabbed his arm, tried to stop him. Like I was a bug he needed to step on. The shooting, I said. How did it start? Morrison fired first, into the crowd. A woman carrying a baby. Sarah's hand tightened on the paper. The signal for the rest to open fire. I stood up. Had to. The chair was suffocating me. I walked to the window, pressed my forehead against the cold glass. Outside, stars wheeled overhead. Same stars as that morning, same sky. Like nothing had happened. Like 73 people hadn't died for nothing. Your father, I said. He was translating when it started, standing between the soldiers and the families. When Morrison fired, my father ran toward them, shouting in Apache to run, to scatter. Her voice cracked for the first time. He made it maybe 20 yards. 3 shots in the back. You counted. I count everything from that morning. I turned from the window. Every face, every scream, every child who... My legs gave out. I caught myself on the table edge, slumped back into the chair. Sarah sat across from me, the candle between us making her face flicker. I was in the supply wagon, she said. Saw it all through a tear in the canvas. Saw you try to stop it. I was too late. You tried. That's more than the others did. I still signed the report. Morrison's version. Hostile engagement. Self-defense. After he broke your thumb. After he had you arrested for insubordination. After he threatened court-martial. She pulled out another paper. Your discharge. 2 months later. Medical reasons. Permanent injury to right hand affecting ability to serve. How do you have that? My father saved everything. Every document that came through. Made copies of ones he couldn't take. She turned the page. Including transfer orders. 3 other officers who were there. All discharged within 6 months. All medical reasons. He got rid of us. The ones who might talk. Or he thought he did. Sarah leaned forward. But you're still alive. So am I. And we both remember. The candle flame flickered. Wax had pooled at the base, threatening to drown the wick. Sarah tilted it. Let the wax run off onto the table. It hardened instantly into white puddles. There's more, she said. Morrison didn't stop with Skeleton Canyon. She pulled out more papers, reports, telegraphs, witness statements, 4 more massacres over the next 2 years, all reported as hostile engagements, all the same pattern surrendering Apache killed, witnesses silenced or discharged. He's a monster, I said. He's a senator, running for president. Someone must know. Someone in Washington. Someone knows. That's why they're hunting me. She gathered the papers, stacked them neat. 3 days after I left Fort Sill, men came asking about Thomas Dancing Crow's daughter, offering money for information. The Pinkerton men, or worse, Morrison has his own men, Ones who don't ask questions. She stood, walked to her trunk, pulled out the oilcloth bundle from before. Unwrapped it, careful. Inside were brass buttons, military buttons, and underneath them, a piece of blood-stained fabric, blue wool, army uniform. "This is from my father's jacket," she said. "Morrison had him buried in it. I dug it up 3 years later, took what I could. Why, to remember, to have proof he existed." She rewrapped the bundle. "And to show his grandchildren someday, if I live long enough to have children." "Sarah. That's not my name anymore. Sarah Dancing Crow is dead. Has been for 12 years. She looked at me straight. "But maybe Maria Thornfield could live. Could have those children. Could tell them about their grandfather." The name hit me strange. Maria Thornfield, my wife. If we went through with the marriage, if we survived the night. "They'll come for you," I said. "For the documents. Let them come. You can't fight them all." "I don't need to fight them all. Just long enough to get these papers to someone who matters. There's a newspaper man in Denver, William Collins. He's been investigating Morrison for years. Denver's 3 days from here. 2, if you ride hard. If you survive the night." She walked back to the table, blew out the candle. Darkness rushed back in. In that darkness, her voice came soft. "I've survived 12 years. Hidden in mission schools, in the Fort Sill infirmary, in the space between names." A pause. "But I'm tired of hiding. So what do you want to do?" "I want to stop running. I want to use my real name. I want Morrison to pay for what he did. They'll kill you first. Maybe. Or maybe they'll kill you for helping me." We sat in the dark, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Then another sound. Horses. Far off, but coming closer. The rumble of hooves carried through the ground before the air. "They're coming," Sarah said. "How many? 3, maybe 4. I stood, found my rifle by feel. Winchester 73. 15 rounds in the magazine. 1 in the chamber. Sarah's Navy Colt had 6. My Colt had 6. 28 bullets total. "Sarah. Maria. I'm Maria now. Remember that." The hoofbeats stopped. They were maybe a quarter mile out, close enough to see the cabin in the starlight, far enough to plan. Then a voice carried on the wind, faint but clear. "Thornfield. We know she's in there." I recognized that voice. My blood went cold. "Morrison." Morrison's voice hung in the air like smoke from a grass fire. I knew that voice. 12 years older now. Rougher, but still carrying that Virginia gentleman's drawl he'd never lost despite 20 years out west. "Got us surrounded. Thornfield, 4 men, good shots. Come out now and we'll make this quick." Sarah Maria moved to the window, stayed low, peered through the corner of the glass. I saw her counting. Her lips moved. 1, 2, 3. "Only 3, she whispered. "He's lying about 4. Morrison doesn't handle guns anymore. Not personally. Then he's got 3 hired men." She moved away from the window. "Plus him. Still bad odds." My mouth had gone dry as summer dirt. I worked up enough spit to swallow. "How long before dawn?" 5 hours, maybe 6. Morrison's voice came again. Closer now. He'd dismounted, was walking toward the cabin. I could hear his boots on the hard-packed dirt. Same measured stride. Same deliberate heel-to-toe walk that said he owned whatever ground he stood on. I know she's in there. Thornfield. The Dancing Crow girl, calling herself Maria now. Sarah's hand found her navy Colt in the darkness. I heard the cylinder turn as she checked the loads again. 6 clicks. 6 bullets. Here's what's going to happen, Morrison continued. She comes out, gives me the papers her father stole. Then we all ride away. Nobody has to die tonight. Like nobody had to die at Skeleton Canyon. The words came out before I could stop them. Silence. Then Morrison laughed, that same soft chuckle I remembered from officers' meetings, the sound he made before destroying someone. That's old history, Lieutenant. Nobody cares about dead Apache anymore. I care. Since when you didn't care enough to refuse orders? Didn't care enough to testify at the inquiry? There was no inquiry. Exactly. Because men like you kept quiet. Good soldiers who knew when to shut up and cash their discharge pay. My hands tightened on the Winchester. The metal was cold, slick with my sweat. Tell you what, Morrison said. I'll make this simple. Send out the girl and the papers. You can keep breathing. Maybe even keep this worthless ranch. Sarah moved beside me in the dark. Her breath touched my ear. He'll kill you anyway. Can't leave witnesses. I knew she was right. Morrison had never left witnesses. That was how he'd made it from lieutenant to colonel to senator. No loose ends. 5 minutes to decide, Morrison called. Then footsteps moving away, back to wherever his men waited. Sarah struck a match. The sulfur flare made me squint. She lit what was left of the candle, set it on the floor where the light wouldn't show through the windows. We need water, she said. Going to be a long night. The water bucket sat by the stove. We reached for the ladle at the same time. Our hands touched on the handle. Hers cold, mine shaking. Neither of us pulled away. For a heartbeat, we stood there, fingers overlapping on the wooden handle. 2 people about to die together who'd been strangers 6 hours ago. She drank first, then passed the ladle to me. The water tasted of metal and darkness. Tell me about him, she said. Morrison. What he was like before. I sat on the floor, back against the wall. She sat beside me, not touching, but close enough I could feel the heat from her body. Ambitious, smart, charming when he needed to be. I closed my eyes, remembering. Could make you feel like the most important person in the room, then cut you down with a look. My father wrote about him. Said he had empty eyes. Not empty, calculating. Always measuring what you were worth to him. What were you worth? Not much. Too soft, he said. Too much conscience. That's why you're still alive. The dangerous ones he had killed. The soft ones he just discharged. The candle flame flickered. Wax was pooling again. Sarah tilted it. Let the wax drip onto the floor. That morning, she said, tell me what you remember. Why? Because we might die in a few hours. Someone should know both sides. I took another drink of water. The metal taste was stronger now. We got up before dawn. Morrison had us positioned on 3 sides of the canyon, told us we were escorting surrendering Apache to Fort Sill. You believed him. I wanted to. Made it easier? I rubbed my face. Stubble caught on my palms. Your father came to me the night before, tried to tell me something, but his English wasn't good enough and my Apache was nothing. What did he say? No good? No good tomorrow? Kept repeating it. I thought he meant the weather. Sarah made a sound. Not quite a laugh. He was trying to warn you. I know that now. Time's up, Morrison called. What's it going to be? I started to stand. Sarah pulled me back down. Not yet. Make him wait. Men like him hate waiting. We sat in the almost dark. The candle was dying, flame going blue at the edges. Outside, I heard horses moving, the men repositioning, getting better angles on the cabin. I was in the wagon, Sarah said, hiding under feed sacks. My father put me there before dawn, told me not to come out no matter what. But you watched. Through a tear in the canvas. Saw everything. Her voice had gone flat. The way voices go when the pain is too big for feeling. The families came in singing. Some of the women had babies in cradleboards. The children were playing. Running around, she pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. Your father gave them hardtack. Army rations. The kids had never tasted white man's food. They were laughing. My throat closed. I remembered those kids, remembered giving one boy a piece of candy from my pocket. He'd smiled so wide. Then Morrison rode to the center. Your father was translating, telling the families they were safe now. Protected. Sarah's voice caught. My father's face, I can still see it, like something inside him was dying with each word. Morrison gave the signal, raised his pistol, shot a woman point blank. She was carrying a baby. That was the signal to open fire. You didn't shoot. Not at first. I was frozen. Couldn't make sense of it. You grabbed Morrison's arm. Too late. The shooting had started. Men were firing into the crowd. The families tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Sarah was shaking now. I felt it through the floor. My father ran toward them, screaming in Apache to scatter, made it maybe 30 feet. Morrison shot him as he ran. 3 times. I counted. So did I. We sat quiet. The candle gave one last flicker and died. Darkness swallowed us. I stayed in that wagon for 2 days, Sarah whispered. Too scared to come out. Pissed myself. Almost died from thirst. Who found you? Soldiers. Came back to bury the bodies. Found me almost dead. They didn't kill you. I was 4. Officially. Too young to matter. Sent me to the mission school. She laughed. Bitter. Morrison signed the papers himself. Probably forgot I existed a week later. Something scraped outside. Boot on wood. Someone was on the porch. Thornfield. Different voice. Younger. Texas drawl. Boss says we can do this hard or easy. Your choice. Sarah stood. I heard her moving in the dark. The trunk opened. Closed. She was back beside me. Here. She pressed something into my hands. Papers? The portfolio? What? They want me alive. To find out what else I know. Who else has copies? Her breath was warm on my cheek. But you're nobody. Just some rancher who got in the way. I'm not letting you— Stop! Her hand covered my mouth. This isn't about letting. This is about choosing. I choose to give you these papers. You choose what to do with them. The doorknob rattled. Someone testing it. Locked, the Texas voice said. Want us to break it down? Not yet, Morrison called. Thornfield, you've got 1 more minute. Then we burn you out. Sarah pulled her hand away from my mouth. In the darkness, I felt her lean close. My father's last words, she whispered. He looked at Morrison and said, protect her. Made the man who'd just shot him promise to protect me. What did Morrison say? He laughed, said the girl's already dead, just doesn't know it yet. She stood. I heard the Navy Colt cock. Well, she said louder, I know it now. She walked to the door. I grabbed for her but caught only air. The latch lifted. The door swung open. Moonlight flooded in. The moon had risen while we talked. Sarah stood silhouetted in the doorway, hands raised, but the Colt still visible. "I'm coming out," she said. "Don't shoot." 3 rifles swung toward her. Behind them, Morrison sat his horse like he was posing for a portrait. Older now, hair gone gray, but the same straight back, the same cold eyes. "Miss Dancing Crow," he said. "Been a long time." "Not long enough." He smiled. That same smile from Skeleton Canyon. "Where are my papers?" That's when I saw the 4th man. Morrison hadn't lied. The 4th man was behind the cabin, moving toward the back door, moving toward me. The back door's boards groaned. The 4th man was testing them, same way I'd tested them 2 winters back when I'd boarded them shut. The bottom board was rotten. Would give easy with a little pressure. Sarah stood on the porch, moon making her shadow long across the floor. Morrison still sat his horse, patient as a rattlesnake on a warm rock. "The papers," Morrison said again. "Where are they?" "Inside," Sarah said. "In my trunk. Get them. You want them. You get them." The sound of a slap carried sharp in the night air. Sarah's head snapped sideways, but she made no sound, just straightened, faced him again. "I've waited 12 years, Morrison said. "I can wait a little longer. Garrett, help the lady retrieve her belongings." The Texas voice belonged to a thin man with a week's worth of beard. He pushed past Sarah into the cabin. I pressed myself against the wall, portfolio clutched to my chest. In the moonlight from the door, I watched him go to Sarah's trunk. He tried the lid, locked. "Need the key," he called out. "Miss Dancing Crow," Morrison said. "The key." Sarah pulled the leather cord from around her neck, tossed it to Garrett. The key clinked against the floor. He picked it up, worked the lock. The trunk opened. He started pulling things out. Her spare dress, the books, undergarments he held up to the moonlight with a grin before tossing them aside. "Just clothes and books," he said. "Look harder." Garrett dumped the whole trunk, everything scattered across the floor. The McGuffey's reader, the Spanish dictionary, a small cloth doll I hadn't seen before, but no papers, no portfolio, because I had it pressed against my ribs under my shirt. "Nothing," Garrett said. Morrison dismounted. His boots hit the ground solid. Same walk as always, like he was on parade. He climbed the porch steps, stood facing Sarah. "Where are they?" "Gone." "Gone where?" "Sent them ahead, to a newspaper man." Morrison backhanded her, harder this time. Blood showed at the corner of her mouth, black in the moonlight. She spit it onto the porch boards. "You're lying," he said. "Prove it." The 4th man had gotten the bottom board loose. I heard it crack, fall away. A hand reached through, feeling for the bar that held the door. My Winchester leaned against the wall 5 feet away. Too far. The Colt under my pillow. 10 feet. Also too far. Morrison pulled out his pistol. Not a Navy Colt like the old days. Something newer, a Schofield maybe. He pressed it under Sarah's chin, forced her head up. "I remember you," he said. "Little girl in the wagon. Crying for your daddy." "I wasn't crying? No." He pushed the barrel harder. "What were you doing then?" "Memorizing. Every face, every scream, every child you murdered." "Hostile combatants. Says so in the report." "Your report. Based on your lies." Morrison smiled. My lies are now official history. Signed, sealed, filed in Washington. The fourth man had his whole arm through now. His fingers found the bar, started lifting it. I moved silent as I could toward the Winchester. 1 step. 2. The floorboard creaked the third one from the stove, the one I'd warned Sarah about. The arm stopped moving. "Thornfield," Morrison called. "I know you're in there. Come out or I paint your wall with her brains." Sarah's eyes found mine through the doorway. She shook her head. "Just barely." "Don't come out," her eyes said. "Don't give him what he wants." 10 seconds, Morrison said. I grabbed the Winchester, jacked around into the chamber. The sound was loud as thunder in the small cabin. 5 seconds. The back door exploded inward. The fourth man came through fast, shotgun first. I swung the Winchester, fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, spun him. His shotgun went off. Buckshot tearing into the ceiling, dirt and splinters rained down. I worked the lever, fired again. He dropped. "Inside!" Morrison shouted. Garrett rushed through the front door. I dove behind the overturned table. His pistol cracked 3 times. Bullets punched through the thin wood. One so close I felt its heat pass my ear. I rolled left, came up firing. The Winchester bucked against my shoulder. Garrett jerked, grabbed his thigh. I fired again. He went down, pistol skittering across the floor. Morrison had Sarah by the hair now, dragging her inside. His Schofield pressed to her temple. "Drop it, Thornfield." I kept the Winchester aimed at him, 20 feet between us. Easy shot, except for Sarah in the way. "Drop it or she dies. You'll kill her anyway." "Maybe. But you don't have to watch." He pulled the hammer back on the Schofield. 3 seconds. Sarah's eyes met mine. No fear in them. Just tired resignation. Like she'd always known it would end this way, I lowered the Winchester. "On the floor," Morrison said. I set it down, kicked it away. Morrison smiled. Same smile from Skeleton Canyon. The smile that said he'd won. "The papers," he said. "Where are they?" "Don't know." He shifted the Schofield from Sarah's head to her knee. "I'll start with her legs. Work my way up. You'll tell me before I'm done." "Denver," Sarah said. "I sent them to Denver. When? 3 days ago, from Fort Sill." Morrison studied her face. "You're lying. Telegraph office. Check the records. If they were already sent, you wouldn't have run. Wouldn't have come here." He looked at me. "She gave them to you." "No." The Schofield swung toward me. "You were never a good liar, Thornfield. Too much conscience. It's why you failed as an officer." The portfolio pressed against my ribs. The oilcloth had made me sweat through my shirt. He'd see it if he looked close. "Stand up," Morrison said. "Turn around." I stood. Turned. The portfolio started to slip. I pressed my arm against it. "Arms up." I raised them. The portfolio dropped inside my shirt, caught on my belt. Morrison moved closer. The Schofield never wavering. "You know what your problem was, Thornfield. You thought the Army was about honor, duty, all that West Point garbage." He was right behind me now. "It was always about power. Who has it? Who uses it? Who survives?" His free hand patted my sides. Found the portfolio immediately. Well. He yanked it free. The oilcloth tore. Papers scattered across the floor. Morrison's orders. The real telegraphs. The list of dead. Sarah's father's journal pages. Everything. Morrison kicked the papers into a pile. Pulled out a match. "No." Sarah lunged for them. Morrison backhanded her again. She fell hard. Didn't get up. Blood pooled under her face. 12 years, Morrison said. 12 years these papers have hung over me. He struck the match. Now they burn, and it's over. It's not over. The voice came from the doorway. We all turned. A man stood there, tall, lean, wearing a badge that caught the moonlight. Behind him, 2 more men with rifles. Federal Marshal Thompson, the man said. Senator Morrison, you're under arrest. Morrison's match burned down to his fingers. He dropped it. The papers stayed intact. On what charge? Murder of 73 Apache civilians. September 15th, 1870. Morrison laughed. That was a military action, hostile engagement. According to these papers, it was murder. Thompson stepped inside, picked up one of the scattered documents. Your own orders. No prisoners. No witnesses. Those are forgeries. Maybe. That's for a court to decide. Thompson looked at me. Mr. Thornfield, you were there. I was. Will you testify? The word stuck in my throat. Testify meant everything would come out. My part in it. My silence after. But Sarah was pushing herself up from the floor, blood on her face, hope in her eyes. Yes, I said. I'll testify. Morrison moved fast for a man his age. The Schofield came up, aimed at Thompson. I moved faster, grabbed Morrison's wrist, twisted. The gun fired, bullet going wide. We fell together, rolled. Morrison was stronger than he looked. His knee caught my ribs. Air rushed out of my lungs. The Schofield was between us, both our hands on it. Morrison's finger found the trigger. The barrel swung toward my face. A shot cracked. Morrison jerked. His grip loosened. I pulled the Schofield free, rolled away. Sarah stood behind us, her Navy Colt smoking. Morrison was holding his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. That's for my father, she said. Thompson's men moved in, pulled Morrison to his feet. One of them tied his hands while he cursed and bled. You can't do this, Morrison said. I'm a United States Senator. Not anymore, Thompson said. He pulled out another paper. Senate voted yesterday. Censure and removal pending investigation. He smiled. Seems some of your colleagues got copies of these documents. Anonymous source. Sarah lowered the Colt. How? Collins, the newspaperman in Denver. He's been sending copies to everyone. Newspapers, senators, the president himself. Thompson gathered up the scattered papers. These originals will seal it. Morrison was still talking as they dragged him out. Threats, bribes, promises. Nobody listened. His voice faded as they rode away, taking Garrett with them. The other 2 men were dead. Sarah and I stood in the wreckage of my cabin, bullet holes in the walls, blood on the floor, her possessions scattered everywhere. It's over, I said. No. She picked up the McGuffey's reader, smoothed its torn pages. Now it begins. What begins? The rest of it, trials, testimony, truth. She looked at me. Are you ready for that? I thought about it. About what it meant to speak truth after 12 years of silence. About what people would say, would think. Does it matter if I'm ready? No, it needs to be done. She was right. It needed to be done. For her father. For those 73 people. For all the others Morrison had killed over the years. There's something else, Thompson said from the doorway. Collins wants to meet you both. Says he'll pay for your travel to Denver. Put you up in a hotel. Together, Sarah asked. Separate rooms, of course, unless... Thompson looked between us. The marriage arrangement, is that still… Sarah looked at me, in the moonlight, with blood on her face and her dress torn. She'd never looked stronger. That was Maria Crow Feather's arrangement, she said. I'm Sarah Dancing Crow, so no marriage. She walked to where I stood, reached up, touched the cut on my cheek where Morrison's ring had caught me. Ask me again, she said. When this is over, ask me as Sarah. Thompson cleared his throat. We need to go. Long ride to Denver. Sarah gathered what she could. Her books, the doll, one spare dress. I grabbed my few things. We walked out together, leaving the cabin door open. Let the wind and weather have it. I was done hiding. The horses were saddled and waiting. Sarah's trunk was already tied to one. As I helped her mount, she leaned down. Your thumb, she said. The one Morrison broke. What about it? My father wrote about it. Said the young lieutenant who tried to stop the killing had a broken thumb. Said if that man ever remembered his conscience, he might do something good. Your father gave me too much credit. We'll see. We rode out as dawn was breaking. Pink light on the mountains. The cabin fell behind us, smaller with each mile. I didn't look back, neither did Sarah. But as we rode, I noticed something. She'd stopped looking for exits. The horses stood patient while Thompson checked their girths. Sarah's mare, a paint with one blue eye, kept turning to watch her. Animals always knew who needed watching. My hands shook as I tied my bedroll behind the saddle, not from fear now, something else. The leather straps were stiff with frost. The temperature had dropped while we'd been inside bleeding and telling truth. Here, Sarah handed me a canteen. Fresh water from the well. My throat was raw from gun smoke and talking. The water went down cold, clean, tasted like morning. Thompson's men had wrapped the bodies in canvas, loaded them on a pack horse. Morrison sat his mount with hands tied to the saddle horn. Shoulder bandaged rough. He'd stopped talking finally, just stared at nothing with those calculating eyes. Sarah walked back into the cabin. I followed. She stood in the middle of the wreckage, turning slow, taking it in. The blood hers, Morrison's. The dead men's had already gone dark on the floorboards. Flies were finding it. Leave it, I said. But she knelt by her scattered things, picked up the cloth doll. Its face was hand-sewn, features worn smooth from handling. She tucked it in her pocket. My mother made this, before Sand Creek. She stood, looked around again. That's all I need. We walked out. I didn't close the door. The place wasn't mine anymore. Maybe it never had been. Just a hole I'd crawled into 12 years ago. Thompson had the papers safe in his saddlebags. The originals, Sarah's father's writing, Morrison's signatures, everything that would hang him proper in court. Not with a rope senators didn't hang. But his reputation would. His legacy. Everything he'd built on the bones of those 73 people. Ready? Thompson asked. Sarah was already mounting her paint. She moved different now. Not checking exits, not counting threats, just getting on a horse to ride somewhere that wasn't away. The sun was full up, warming the frost off the sage, made the air smell sharp, clean. A hawk circled overhead, riding thermals that wouldn't form for another hour. Just floating up there, waiting. We formed a line, Thompson leading, then Morrison with a deputy on each side, then me and Sarah, then the pack horse with its wrapped bundles. A funeral procession, sort of. An ending and a beginning wrapped up together. The trail to Denver usually went north through Parker's Valley, but Thompson turned east toward the canyon country. "Apache trails," he said. "Shorter, if you know them." Sarah rode up beside him. "I know them." She did. Pointed out the bent trees that marked direction. The stone cairns that warned of bad water. Signs her people had left, that the army never learned to read. We stopped at noon by a spring hidden in the rocks. You'd never find it unless you knew. Sarah showed Thompson where her grandmother had carved symbols in the stone. Warnings. Blessings. History written in a language Morrison had tried to erase. Morrison watched her explain the symbols. His face stayed blank, but his eyes followed every gesture, still calculating, still measuring. "You think this changes anything?" he said. First words in hours. Nobody answered. Those Apache were enemies. We were at war. War was over, Thompson said. They were surrendering. War's never over, just pauses between fighting. Morrison looked at me. Thornfield knows. That's why he hid. Knew another fight was coming. I wasn't hiding from a fight. I was hiding from what I'd done. Same thing. Sarah walked over to him, stood looking up at his mounted figure. The sun behind her made her shadow long across his horse. "My father respected you," she said. "At first, said you were a man who kept his word." Morrison's jaw tightened. "The night before Skeleton Canyon, he asked you to spare the children. You said you would. Plans changed. No, you lied." She pulled out a paper. Not one of the evidence documents. Something else. "This is the last page of his journal, written that morning while you were positioning the troops." She read it in Apache first, the rhythm of it like water over stones. Then translated, "Colonel Morrison has broken his word. My daughter sleeps beside me for the last time. When the sun rises, I will try to save who I can. I know I will die. I pray Sarah lives to speak the names of the dead." She folded the paper. Put it away. "He knew you'd kill him, but he thought you'd keep your word about the children. I kept my word. You're alive. Because you forgot I existed." We rode on. The canyon walls rose around us, red stone catching the afternoon light. The trail narrowed. Single file now. Sarah led, knowing the way. 3 hours in. She stopped, dismounted at a wide spot where the canyon opened up, walked to a pile of stones against the north wall. "Help me," she said. Thompson and I dismounted. We moved the stones. Underneath was a cache, wrapped bundles, ceramic jars sealed with pine pitch. Sarah opened one jar, cornmeal inside, still good. "My father's last cache," she said. "He set these up all through the canyons, for families running, for survivors." She took a pinch of cornmeal, scattered it to the 4 directions, said words in Apache, a blessing, a thank you, a goodbye. "Take what you need," she told Thompson. "Leave the rest. Others might come." We took some cornmeal, some dried meat, left ammunition in trade, Thompson's idea, resealed it all, replaced the stones. Morrison watched from his horse, saying nothing. The canyon trail came out on a ridge as the sun started dropping. Below us, the land spread out brown and gold. In the distance, smoke from Denver. 3 days' ride, Thompson said. Maybe 4 with Morrison slowing us down. We camped that night by another hidden spring. Sarah showed me how to find water in the desert, reading the land like her father had taught her. Birds told you where. Insects. The way certain plants grew. "Your people knew this land," I said. No. Present tense. We're not all dead. I didn't mean, I know what you meant. She softened it with almost a smile. You're learning. That night we sat by the fire while Thompson's men took turns watching Morrison. He sat against a rock, hands still tied, staring at the flames. The orange light made his face look older, showed every line, every year of calculating and killing. Tell me about after, I said to Sarah. After what? After the trial. After testimony. After Morrison hangs or rots in prison. She poked at the fire with a stick. Sparks rose up, died against the stars. I want to teach. Like my father wanted to. Open a school, maybe. For Apache children. For all children, Apache, Mexican, white. Anyone who wants to learn, they won't let you. They'll have to. After this trial, my name will mean something. Sarah Dancing Crow, daughter of Thomas Dancing Crow, the girl who brought down a senator. That's not a life. That's just fame. No, it's a tool, like education, like truth. She looked at me across the fire. What about you after? I thought about it. Couldn't see past the trial, past standing up in court and saying yes. I was there. Yes. I participated. Yes. I stayed silent for 12 years. I don't know. You could teach too. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Who'd want to learn from me? Children don't care about your past. They care about whether you're kind, whether you're patient, whether you show up. Thompson came over, sat with us. Collins will want to interview you both, separately at first, then together. He's fair, but he'll ask hard questions. Good, Sarah said. Easy questions won't get justice. You might not get justice anyway. Morrison has friends, judges who owe him. Then we'll get truth. Sometimes that's enough. Morrison laughed from his spot by the rocks. Truth. You think truth matters? I've got more truth than you know what to do with. Truth about other officers. Other massacres. I go down. I take half the army with me. Good, Thompson said. Been needing a cleaning. We rode for 3 more days. Through canyons, across valleys, following Apache trails that cut miles off the journey. Sarah led most of the time. She knew things where to find water, where to shelter from wind, which plants the horses could eat. On the 3rd night, camped within sight of Denver's lights, she asked me something. That morning, at Skeleton Canyon, what did you think when you saw my father running toward the families? I'd been dreading this question, but she deserved an answer. I thought he was brave, braver than any of us. I stared at the fire, and I thought he was dead, knew Morrison would kill him for it. But you tried to stop Morrison anyway. After your father was already down, too late to matter. It mattered to me. A 10-year-old girl in a wagon, watching everyone she knew die. One soldier tried to stop it. That mattered. Not enough. No, not enough. But something. The last day. We came down from the hills into Denver proper. Streets full of wagons and horses and people. Sarah had never seen a city this big. Her eyes went wide, then narrow, then careful, taking it in, measuring threats and exits again. Collins met us at the hotel, thin man with ink-stained fingers and eyes that never stopped moving. He shook Sarah's hand first, then mine. Miss Dancing Crow, Mr. Thornfield, we have much to discuss. After they rest, Thompson said. And eat, and see a doctor about those cuts. Of course, rooms are ready, hot water for baths, clean clothes. Collins looked at Morrison being led away to jail. Senator, how the mighty fall. Not fallen yet, Morrison said. This isn't over. No, Collins agreed. It's just beginning. Sarah and I stood on the hotel steps, watching Morrison disappear into the jail wagon. She still had blood on her dress. I still had his ring mark on my face. We looked like what we were survivors of something that should have killed us. Thank you, she said. For what? For not running, for keeping the papers, for being here. Thank your father. His words kept me up at night for 12 years. Protect her. He said it to Morrison, but I heard it too. And you did. Finally, we protected each other. She took my hand, squeezed it once. Let go. Tomorrow, we start telling the truth, she said. All of it, all of it. We went inside, separate rooms, like Thompson said. But that night, I heard her pacing. Heard her stop at her door, maybe thinking about knocking on mine. Heard her go back to pacing. I almost went to her door. Almost knocked. Almost said something about not being alone anymore. But morning would come soon enough. And with it, the questions, the truth, the long reckoning we'd both been running from. So I lay in that too-soft hotel bed, listening to Sarah Dancing Crow pace out her freedom, and waited for dawn. Listen, friend, I need to tell you something about that hotel in Denver. Sarah and I, we stood in that hallway like two people at the edge of a cliff, knowing we had to jump, but not knowing if we'd land whole. 12 years I'd carried Skeleton Canyon like stones in my chest. She'd carried it since she was 10. But that night, listening to her pace, I understood something. We weren't just witnesses anymore. We were proof that even the worst morning can lead to a better dawn. That truth spoken late is still truth. That an Apache woman and a cavalry soldier could stand in the same doorway and choose to walk through it together, toward whatever came next. This connecting of hearts wasn't romantic. Not then. It was two people recognizing the same wound and deciding to stop letting it bleed. Morrison thought he'd broken us separately. Instead, we chose to heal together. That's what I learned in those 3 days riding to Denver. Sometimes the person who understands your guilt best is the one who shares your ghosts. Sometimes redemption comes not from forgetting, but from remembering with someone who remembers too. Disclaimer: this is a work inspired by historical Western frontier stories created solely for entertainment purposes. This story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental.